are following some breaking news. It takes us out to the nation's capital, giving you a live look at the White House. As this Sunday morning, U.S. President Donald Trump is pleading for progress in ceasefire talks as it relates to the war in Gaza. He's calling for a deal that would halt the fighting in the 20-month-long conflict as Israel and Hamas appear to be inching closer to an agreement. An Israeli official said plans were being made for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to travel to Washington in the coming weeks, a sign there may be movement in a new deal. The official declined to discuss the focus of the visit and spoke on condition of being anonymous to discuss plans that have yet to be finalized. We do know bright and early this Sunday morning, President Donald Trump put this out on Truth Social. I want you to take a good look at your screen as we're following this breaking news. The commander-in-chief says, quote, "Make the deal in Gaza, get the hostages back." A lot to discuss, so we want to bring into the conversation none other than the Deputy Director, National Council of Resistance of Iran U.S. Representative Office, Ali Resa Jaffar. Ali Reza, good morning. Always a pleasure having you here.
Great pleasure to be on your show, always.
So, Ali Reza, let's first discuss this breaking news. I actually want to put it back on the screen for the viewers this Sunday morning. This coming out just moments ago from President Donald Trump on Truth Social. He says, "Make the deal in Gaza, get the hostages back." Many Israelis so happy to see President Donald Trump put this out because for several weeks, the focal point has been on Iran. And so many people feeling like the hostages have been forgotten about as it relates to the conflict with Israel and Hamas. Break that down for us, please.
Well, first of all, let's keep in mind that the main party behind all the crises we have been facing since October 2023 has been the Iranian regime. In fact, it was the Iranian regime who had all the intense incentive in the world because they were in trouble, because they were getting weakened inside the country. They thought by, getting involved in some other parts of the world, moving attention, this way they can survive. I remember the head of the stake of war and terror lies in Tehran, and righteously so. The world was focusing on the epicenter of the problem. That was the Iranian regime. And I've said all the time that so long as the mullahs are in power, nothing is going to be resolved, including the situation in the Middle East. Adding to it the nuclear weapons program, their terrorism, their missile program, their drone program, all of that. I think what has happened in the past 2-3 weeks has actually contributed to moving forward in accomplishing peace in the Middle East. But the regime will have, will play its own cards, will try to disrupt the whole process, because the one party that definitely doesn't want peace in that part of the world is the Iranian regime. They thrive on crisis. They thrive on exporting their so-called revolution, getting their proxies involved. They were badly hit and weakened over the past year or so after they lost their biggest ally, Assad, in Syria. Hezbollah, which has by far been their biggest proxy, also contributing to the problems in the Middle East. They were badly shattered. The Houthis in Yemen have received major blows, the Shia militias in Iraq. So here's the situation that, you're inches closer to the peace, but not quite there, because the mullahs are still in power in Tehran.
Yeah, so many great points you bring up, Ali Reza, and I think it's important to highlight what you mentioned about Iran being the puppet master of everything that's been going on since October 7th, when we look at Hamas, even Hezbollah, and as you mentioned, the Yemen Houthi rebels. Many questions this morning surrounding the Iranian regime. Also, if we look back to this past week, we saw how that prison was impacted. Many women highlighting what this means for a change in the area as it relates to women's rights, also as it relates to a certain regime being impacted to no longer take over the territory. Could you break that down for us and provide context?
Well, our information shows on the ground in the past 2 weeks the regime was facing a major dilemma. Their main concern is that the authority of the state security forces operated by the Revolutionary Guards, the Basij forces, these are the forces who are in charge of repression in Tehran and other cities. They have received major blows. But remember, even before all of these things, we have had several rounds of major uprisings in Iran since 2017 in all 31 provinces, including the capital, Tehran. People have been chanting death to Khamenei, death to the dictator, death to the oppressor, be it the Shah or the supreme leader. There is a very deep-rooted desire on the part of the Iranian people to free themselves from the clutches of the mullahs, rejecting any form of dictatorship the same way that they overthrew the repressive dictatorship of the Shah in 1979 because he had a secret police savak, had a single party rule, was extremely corrupt, and people were getting poorer under the Shah. And they are doing the same thing now against the mullahs. And now the Iran regime is trying to move the political prisoners out of the notorious Evin prison, ironically built under the Shah, to other prisons so they can have better control over the situation. No matter what they're doing in terms of the political prisoners and others, nothing is really helping the regime because everything in every aspect is going south.
Yeah, and as you mentioned that, a lot of questions this morning from the viewers as it relates to the nuclear program. I want to share this with you as we are getting the very latest from President Donald Trump. We're going to drop this lower so we can read it together. The commander-in-chief saying, quote, "Who in the fake news media is the sleazebag saying that President Trump wants to give Iran $30 billion to build non-military nuclear facilities? Never heard of this ridiculous idea. It's just another hoax put out by the fake news in order to demean." He concludes by saying these people are sick. And we know how serious the impact of the strikes on the nuclear sites has been in Iran. It poses the question this morning, Ali Reza, will the Iranian regime be able to reignite its nuclear weapons program?
Well, certainly the Iran regime has the desire to reignite its nuclear weapons program. The reason for it is that the regime relies on its nuclear weapons program. They use that, they see that as a guarantee for their survival. It's not about energy. It has never been about energy. It has always been about building the bomb. Why would the Iran regime spend, at least $2 trillion on its nuclear weapons program, if it's all about energy, which doesn't even produce 1% of the power needed in the country. So they've gone through all of these ups and downs, the fight with the international community over the years. So it's always been about the bomb. I remember back in August of 2002 when we first revealed the nuclear site in Natanz, that's the uranium enrichment facility, that triggered the inspections of Iranian nuclear sites for the first time by the UN nuclear watchdog, the IAEA. And then we revealed a whole host of other sites, and including in December 2005, we exposed the nuclear site in Fordo, which is built under the mountains. But what did the world do about that? The Europeans at the time rushed to negotiate with Tehran, gave them everything they wanted, hoping that this will, tame the behavior, change the attitude of the Iran regime. It didn't. And eventually, during the Obama administration, the nuclear talks eventually leading to the nuclear agreement, the JCPOA, legitimized the whole program in 2015, allowing the regime to have those centrifuges under the mountains in Fordo, in Natanz, and everywhere else, allowing them to continue the research and development, closing their eyes on the weaponization aspect of this. And that's why we're here right now. So, and of course, within the past 2 weeks, much of their the program has been badly shattered. The foreign minister of the Iran regime, Abbas Araghchi, talked about the damages inflicted by the U.S. attack, describing it as extensive and serious. But that doesn't mean that the Iran regime has decided to give up on their nuclear weapons program. They will try. They will try to see either they can revive whatever they had there, or there are other sites that that they have hidden from the others. The know-how, all of those things, they will try to revive it. It's not going to happen, the next day. This is a major setback to their nuclear weapons program. And that's why I say, so long as the agenda of Tehran hasn't changed, you need to continuously worry about that, but also look at all the other aspects of the regime's troublesome behavior, meaning their terrorism and also the killings inside the country. But one aspect I want to emphasize on is the weakness and the vulnerability of the Iran regime. This is the same regime that boasted that, we have these things, no one can touch us. We've taken care of all the things. We have thought about all of that. We have these missile capabilities, all of that. And the world saw in the past, 2 weeks or so, the mere vulnerability and the weakness of the regime, as they saw before when the regime lost its allies in the region, and they had seen before the inability of the regime to confront the protesters, those involved in the uprising. So I think, the regime can try as much as they want, but the realities on the ground are so different now than they were just even a year ago.
Ali Resa Jaffar, always a pleasure having you join us here on Live Now from Fox for your thorough expertise and context of everything going on in the Middle East. I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday.
Oh, thank you so much. I just want to add one point. I think it's important for your audience and everybody to understand that on the flip side of the weakness of the Iran regime is the power of the people, that there exists a viable alternative, a powerful force that has been trying to bring about change in Iran. The leader of the movement, Mrs. Mariam Rajavi, she appeared at the European Parliament 21 years ago, telling them, when you continue appeasement policy, you're going to end up with war. There is a third option that is bringing about change by the people of Iran. And she was again in the same European Parliament just 2 weeks ago, reminding them, now look at the situation. Now let's emphasize even more on the issue of, bringing down the Iranian regime threat based on the third option, relying on the people of Iran and the organized resistance. And when President Trump announced the peace between Israel and Iran, ending the attacks, Mrs. Raji was the first to put out a statement welcoming it, saying this is a step forward for accomplishing the third option, which is ending the rule of the clerics by the people of Iran, because they have a tremendously strong network on the ground known as the resistance units, operated by the same movement that exposed these nuclear sites, the MEK. And they have had 3,000 operations against the IRGC. They're expanding, they're gaining momentum, they're relying on the Iranian population, particularly, who are so dissatisfied with the mullahs. So that's where I think the real focus should be, both in terms of ending the nuclear threat of the Iranian regime, but also the problem the regime has been creating in the whole region and the peace in the Middle East.
Ali Resa, thank you so much for that context as it relates to the nuclear sites. We'll be checking back in with you in the coming days. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
That's a pleasure as well. Thank you.